Okay, first of all, tonight is sponsored by Atara Boker and her children, in loving memory of her husband, Michael Boker, Michael Boker's father, Meir Shimon ben Peretz, Olav Shalom, for his first yahrzeit. Where's Michael? Okay. Also sponsored by Yaron and Ilana Gudes in honor of Yoav. Where's Yoav? Right? So happy birthday. Big 19, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and sponsored also by Eva Pickman in memory of Reuven Zanvel ben Moshe Olav Shalom on his upcoming yahrzeit. And a happy birthday to Sammy Cohen. Chanting the birthday. Sponsored by Nancy and Michael Cohen, his parents, and the rest of the Cohen and Lederman families. Happy birthday. Also 19? Okay.
Happy birthday.
It's my birthday as well. My parents didn't sponsor it. What is the importance of a name? We have all heard Rav Natanel's Sicha about this very topic, or even Parsha fall victim to hiding their importance behind a facade. The first example is in this week's Parsha, Parshat Yitro. This is considered to be one of the most important and memorable Parsha in the Torah. Yitro just so happens to be my bar mitzvah Parsha. And for the last 5 years, I've been asking myself this one question. Why on earth is this Parsha called Yitro? Unlike others that fall into this famous Parsha category, like Bereshit and Lech Lecha, the name of the Parsha has nothing to do with its fame. The most notable thing in this Parsha is the 10 Commandments. The basis of our entire religion happens to be in the 6th Aliyah. One of the most important covenants in our history also shows its head in the 4th Aliyah, that being, V'atem tili mamlechet kohanim v'goy kadosh ela dvarim asher tedaber el bnei Yisrael. You shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words that you shall speak to the children of Israel. Hashem gives us our following laws and commandments that we live by and makes a covenant that will keep us in his favor forever and all time. Even after all this mind-boggling information recited in this week's Parsha, it is still called Parshat Yitro, not Parshat Aseret Dibrot or Parshat Habrit. The Parsha is named after Moshe's father-in-law, who just shows up out of the blue and is not even Jewish. You might say, Adam, obviously it's called Yitro. Bro, read the first pasuk. Yes, the first pasuk and the first 2 words in that pasuk are Vayishma Yitro. But I was not satisfied with that answer. My first inclination was to research the importance of what Yitro did to the body of Am Yisrael, which is stated in the 18th parak of Shemot. Yitro watches how Moshe deals with the little problems of the nation. Realizing that it is draining his son-in-law, and that is the least efficient manner of judgment of a mass group of people. Just imagine, you and everyone in this yeshiva, in this country, are sitting in front of the king and awaiting to give your query and his answer. Unimaginable, right? But this is the exact scenario occurring in the desert. Yitro, after witnessing this travesty of a court system, advised Moshe to implement judges. And then, with each more pressing matter going up a level of judgment, and only the most important issues we brought to Moshe himself. Yet, with all of my research, I could not understand how creating politics and government could outrank the 10 Commandments in importance. It still didn't make sense why this Parsha was called Parshat Yitro. So, what do all Atara Boker do when they hit a brick wall? Of course, go to Rav Machlos. And you know what Rav Machlos did? He pointed me into a different direction. He said, instead of looking at the first pasuk, take a look at the second and the third pasuk, which are Vayikach Yitro Chaten Moshe et Zipora Eshem Asher Achar Shilachel and Ve'et Shnei Vaneh Asher Shem Achad Gershom Ki Amar Ger Hayiti Be'eretz Nachriya. So Yitro, Moshe's father-in-law, took Zipporah, Moshe's wife, after she had been sent home, and her 2 sons, of whom was named Gershom. That is to say, I have been a stranger in a foreign land. You're probably thinking to yourself, as I did, what was this great Torah scholar seeing that I was not? What is the importance of Yitro bringing down Zipporah and her two sons? The following that was presented to me was in the name of the Lebowitz Rebbe, who understood that without Yitro bringing down Zipporah to her husband, we would not have the 10 Commandments or the Brit. The reason for this is that without a moral support and a loving figure in Moshe's life, it is quite possible that the Jews of the time would not be as successful as they were without having Zipporah there. That Moshe would not be as successful without having Zipporah there with him. There are a lot of interesting parts to unpack here. But the most interesting to me is that this Parsha, Parshat Yitro, according to this understanding, is named that because of the smallest act a person can do. All Yitro did was bring his daughter home, which to him is something so minuscule, it would go completely under the radar of a normal person. And yet, without this tiny act, the Jewish people could possibly not be where we are today. If that does not show how small actions, like opening the door for someone or saying hello to someone in the morning, could have a massive impact on the world and the people around you, what does? To illustrate this point further, I have a story where countless lives were saved because of a small act. There was once a boy named Solly Gaynor who received some money as a Hanukkah gift and was debating if he should spend the sum of money giving to charity or buying movie tickets. I know which one I would choose. To settle this dilemma, he went out to seek advice from his aunt, who worked at the local upscale grocery store, where ever so often there would be foreign dignitaries searching the aisles. On this visit, there in front of the cash register stood an immaculately dressed gentleman who held himself with an air of importance. Solly's aunt said, "Solly, say hello to the Council of Japan, Mr. Sugihara." After an instant of looking into Mr. Sugihara's eyes, Solly had already decided that this man was filled with humor and generosity, hope and sacrifice. It was as if he found a friend in an elegant man with the unusual eyes. Mr. Sugihara asked if Solly needed money for the holiday that was approaching. He went into his pocket, opened his wallet, and withdrew a single coin. Solly responded saying, "I can't take your coin, you're just a stranger." Mr. Sugihara responded to that saying, "Then consider me an uncle for the holiday." Solly accepted his new uncle's gift and then responded to that kindness with, "If you were to be my new uncle, then please join us for our family Hanukkah party. It's happening on Saturday night. Everyone will be there." His eyes lit up and he said, "I would certainly love to come and join your family. I've never been to a Hanukkah party before." So, Mr. Sugihara, the vice consul of Japan, and his wife Yukio joined Solly Gaynor's family Hanukkah party. Nearing the end of the party, Abe Rosenblatt, Solly's father, approached Mrs. Sugihara, describing how the Germans were bombing Warsaw, leaving it in ruins, and how he was trapped under his house for 3 days, and sadly his daughter Leah died. Abe Rosenblatt described in great detail the cruel and heinous acts that were being done to the Jews at the hands of the Germans at that time. You could see the horror on the Japanese diplomat's face on that day. He promised Abe Rosenblatt that he would look into issuing visas for Jews who are experiencing atrocities like these. After petitioning 3 times the Japanese government for permission to fulfill his promise, and being refused each one of those 3 times, he decided to do it illegally and risk his career and his life to fulfill his promise. He would tell those he issued the visa that I have no permission from my government to issue these visas. But under these circumstances, the humanitarian needs of people take precedence over my received instructions. When the dust settled, Mrs. Sugihara issued over 3,000 visas. After this act of defiance, he was no longer allowed to serve his country as a diplomat. He died almost penniless and disgraced to his people and his nation. Yet, he said that, though I may have disobeyed my government, there was no choice. Otherwise, I would be disobeying God. You might be thinking once again, how is this story relevant to the topic of the name of the Parsha? Miss Sugihara saved over 3,000 people. It is estimated that over 40,000 people are alive today because of his actions. This is all the result of one boy being kind. One boy going up to a stranger and inviting him to his family Hanukkah party. Maybe we need to be more mindful of what we do and say, because who knows, we could be the next Yitro or Solly Gaynor and be responsible for so much good to come in the future.
All right. So, before I start, I'd like to give heartfelt thanks to a bunch of people, obviously all the Rebbeim here, everyone here, but specifically to Rav Uri, who helped me a lot with writing this. I'd also like to thank my independent study chavrusa Gavi Kaplan for being incredibly patient with me while I was using our time to write this. So I'm looking forward to getting back to Makos. And I would also like to thank my family members for being here to listen to my Dvar tonight. So I'm speaking here tonight in honor of my father. His first yahrzeit comes up next week on Monday night and Tuesday day. I'm speaking now because next week, Thursday, I won't be able to be here. I'll already be with my family, so now's the time. And I'd just like to give something that I feel would have connection to how my father lived, and something I could take, everything we could take from it. Like, I'm sorry, my English is bad. In this week's Parsha, right, a lot of things happen, but I'd like to focus on something that I think is insignificant at first glance, right? After Yitro hears about all the things Hashem did for Moshe and Bnei Israel, he comes to Moshe's camp, right? As he approaches, before he even gets there, before he even arrives, Moshe anticipates his arrival and goes out from the camp to greet him, along with all of Bnei Israel, and honors him in all sorts of various ways. I'm confused as to why Moshe does this, as it seems a bit backwards to me. First of all, Moshe at this point has become such a revered individual. He's the greatest of all prophets, who knew Hashem panim al panim, who split the sea, led a weakened, enslaved people out of the greatest empire that ever was at the time. Lo kam be'Yisrael k'Moshe od. There was nobody like Moshe. Moshe was on a level above. Shouldn't Yitro be the one coming to, showing honor to Moshe, not the other way around? And yet here, Moshe is mochel his own kavod, goes completely out of his way, go greet Yitro before he even arrives at his doorstep, or more accurately, his tent flap. Why does Moshe do this? Why? He does it to honor his father-in-law. Now, I think most of the married people in this room will agree with me when I say honoring one's in-laws is an extremely difficult task sometimes. They may have very different values and ideas than you, which make it difficult to cooperate. However, not only does Moshe go out of his way to greet his father-in-law and serve him a meal, but even later he gives an even greater honor, right? When Moshe is judging Bnei Israel, right? Moshe is doing his job, taking people one by one, judging them. Yitro comes to him and is like, what are you doing? Moshe responds, it's his duty as the leader of Bnei Israel to judge those who come before him and relay Hashem's laws to them. Yitro tells him, this is inefficient. You're going to burn out. What you're doing is wrong. Let me help you. He suggests another way to go about this. Who is this guy? Who is this Midianite priest, this man who converted one day ago, to suggest such a thing? Might I add, he only converted after hearing about all of the miracles Hashem did for Bnei Israel, right? What makes Yitro any better than Haran, who jumped into the furnace to show allegiance to God only after he saw Avram live? Who is this guy? Who is this man to tell the greatest prophet and leader that ever was how to do his job? Answer was, he was his father-in-law. Simple. What's the significance of Moshe honoring his father-in-law? What do we learn from this, and what specifically from the perspective of the Parsha of Matan Torah? I would like to suggest an idea. Well, I wasn't going to say his name because he asked me not to, but I was going to say a rabbi in Jerusalem who lives at 137 Ma'alot Dafna. I would suggest going there for a Shabbos meal. It's an experience they'll never forget. The idea being that showing kavod, chesed, and anava to others when it's hardest is what gives one merit to receive the Torah. As we established earlier, honoring your in-laws is difficult. Not a joke. Moshe had probably the best resume ever. A whole sheet of glowing recommendations and certifications directly from God himself. If anyone was worthy of having an ego, I think it'd be Moshe. All of us peasants, us peons, were beneath him. We should be beneath him. Who are you? You're not my problem. Get out of my face, right? And yet, despite all of his accolades, Moshe was an incredibly humble and giving individual. Moshe never considered himself above anybody. He went to go greet Yitro, his father-in-law, the Midianite priest, out to the camp, bringing with him the entire nation, which is completely unnecessary. It's a lie. Come see my father-in-law. Show him your honor. I don't need any honor. He even lowers himself to be a simple waiter while his father-in-law eats a meal with the entire nation. Like, oh, this giant spread. Imagine like the greatest Thanksgiving you've ever been to. Everybody sitting there. And imagine like, I don't know, the grandfather, the Balabais coming and being a waiter on you. It's like, it's crazy. Such incredible character. One last thing, I'd also like to connect this to another receiving of the Torah, Shavuot. Shavuot's actually my birthday. So I plan to give another Dvar on Shavuot. Stay tuned. But on Shavuot we read Megillat Ruth. What's even more striking about Ruth is that even after her husband passed, when she had no obligation to her mother-in-law anymore, she still took care of her mother-in-law when they went to a land foreign to them, worked and did everything for her out of pure chesed and kavod. With these qualities, her story, similar to that of Moshe and Yitro, merits being read on the celebration of Matan Torah. These are the qualities we need to develop and demonstrate to one another to merit Matan Torah once more. Now I'm going to take a moment just to talk about my father in relationship to this Dvar Torah. In terms of honoring one's in-laws, my grandfather can attest to this, he's here today, that my father worked under my grandfather, his father-in-law, for over 20 years. So, even before moving from the States to Israel, my father was always close with my grandfather. There were close, not many son-father-in-law relationships, in which many of them are perhaps bitter or prone to arguments. My father cared deeply for others, always putting them first. He would bend over backwards to make sure that people around him were taken care of, be it retrieving my homework when I forgot it at school, which I did a lot, or making sure everyone he knew had matzah to eat on Pesach. No job or task was beneath him. He would do physical labor, driving, anything, any job that could support his family and allow him to do chesed on the way. I tell you, so many people who I had no idea like who they were, not from a hole in the wall, came up to me and was like, your father did this or that. And I'm like, I had no idea, right? No ego, kind heart, respect to everyone, no matter what their supposed status is in life. This is what I learned from the way my father lived. May we all be zocheh to live in the ways of Matan Torah.